Hi, I'm Lieutenant Shawn Kelley with the Ohio State Highway Patrol. Welcome back to another episode of Keeping You Safe. With me today will be Dr. John Lorentz from Scioto County, and he and I will be talking about some of the good things that are going on in Scioto County. So please stay tuned.
Excellent.
And welcome back to another episode of Keeping You Safe. With me today is going to be Dr. John Lorentz, and we're going to talk about some of the positive things that's going on in Scioto County. But first, I'd just like to say just how proud and how pleased I am with the Portsmouth Post and the actions of the staff and the troopers there. In fact, I'd like just a moment to maybe go over with you a few of the good things that's going on that I feel it's important for the community to know. Scioto County right now, the troopers in Scioto County and Post 73 have reached heights that they haven't reached in over 2 decades. That's not because of me. I'm the lesser of the least when it comes to that operation, but the troopers, the maintenance guy, the dispatchers, and the supervision at that post is superior. Operationally, our numbers off the charts, doing really well, removing drug drivers, criminal patrol efforts, our seatbelt enforcement. We're even throwing more kindness and diversity into our program, which is more meaningful than what you could imagine. Just to give you an example of the progress in life preservation that our troopers are making, we talk about fatal reduction, fatal crash reduction. The average over the past 2 decades have been 12 per year, 12 fatal crashes. This year, going into the 10-month, we're at 3. That's a great progression. However, we're not done. 4 people actually in Scioto County have died in car crashes this year, and that's too many. Those people are special to someone, and we want to make efforts to reduce it even more. So that's just a quick rundown of what goes on behind the scenes at the post level as far as operations goes. And when things go so well, we want to look at what's next and how can we make our community a better place. A lot of those things go with understanding addiction, trying to involve our youth in a lot more of our activities, educational efforts. And as a commander, when I looked around and I seen the need for positivity in our community, very fortunate to run into some great people. And it's not about making Scioto County or Portsmouth great. It's already great. I just want the youth and the people that live here to understand how great it actually is. So that led me to Dr. John Lorentz, a longtime resident of Scioto County and a very influential person in our area that I've grown to appreciate in a multitude of ways. So as I turn it over to him for a second, I'll just ask you to give a brief synopsis of your life the best you can, and then I have a series of questions that I'd like for you to answer and kind of give the listening audience a rundown of what's happening.
Well, I was born and raised in Portsmouth, Ohio. I left to go off to college and was gone for over 30 years, and came back in 1990, some 29 years ago now, to be a part of helping build a brand new university, Shawnee State University, where I have been a history professor, now Professor Emeritus, and was the founding director of the Center for International Programs and Activities there. I got into a film career with my son, and after I had retired from the university, and we did a film on the Ohio River flood in 1937 called River Voices. And the best way to describe the impact of that film is that it was like throwing a rock in a still pond. It just it struck a responsive chord immediately and took off. And that has led to, since, a film career as a documentary film producer along with my son. We did a second documentary called Beyond These Walls, the subtitle of which was Building Community Through Public Art. And it was on the flood wall murals in Portsmouth. And it was out of that experience that we particularly saw that inadvertently, really, since we hadn't really started out with that as the thought in mind, but that both of these films ended up being about a sense of community and the importance and the impact of such a sense. Particularly Beyond These Walls, which went, as did River Voices nationally on PBS, I started getting calls from all over the country, from communities that saw something in this film, that how one could sort of take local assets and turn them into a very positive thing in the community, or what I would call community development. Think of the flood wall murals in Portsmouth. This was really taking, with the murals, you took what was, as someone in film describes, the concrete monstrosity, or is even the muralist himself said when he came, I took one look at that wall and it was like a prison wall. And look at now the murals today and the impact that that's having on the community. So the community took a lemon and turned it into lemonade. And some don't seem to recognize this yet, but it's now become the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Ohio. People are coming into Portsmouth, and that's led now to development in the area, Boneyfiddle area, around where the murals are located. And that subsequently has led to a lot of positive things happening in Portsmouth, and I think this is where the community itself is now beginning to catch up and understand that despite the good deal of negative publicity that the area has gotten over the opioid crisis, that there are many, many positive things happening in the city of Portsmouth, and I think there's really a very bright future for the city of Portsmouth, all revolving around this theme of a sense of community, where people are working together and thinking one step above themselves or their particular organizations and working together as a community. I could say much more about that, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, no, it's just when I talked to Dr. Lorentz early on, the goal was to have several people at the Highway Patrol Post that I believe are influential in making a positive impact. But with that being said, I asked everybody to please leave their educations and your authorities and your egos at the door, and let's sit down and talk like humans and figure out what we need to put that hometown pride in Scioto County. No political agendas, no self-glorification, nothing of the sort. It's just a matter of a pure heart and a lot more people with pure hearts in Scioto County than what I would have ever imagined. So I guess the first question that I would have for you is that Portsmouth has always been surrounded with negative publicity, especially in recent times. Is this a fair assessment of what is really happening in Southern Ohio? Why or why not?
No, I don't think it's a fair assessment. There are many, many great things happening in Scioto County now, and one could tick off a number of organizations that are involved in this this progress and working together for the good of the whole here. Some of the organizations that come to mind immediately are Connex, the Bicycle Pathway Group. Friends of Portsmouth is doing great work in terms of bringing the community together in some of the projects that they have been involved with, including last year's Winterfest, and that's coming up again this December with the ice skating down at the Market Street area in Boneyfiddle. You have Main Street Portsmouth, again, doing excellent work. And it goes on and on. I could tick off a dozen different groups and organizations that are really contributing. And above all, not just contributing in terms of their own organization, but actually now working in a cooperative spirit with each other. That's been sort of a trend here in the last year or so. And all that is really leading to a lot of very positive events and developments in the city, not only the city of Portsmouth, but actually Scioto County and the Southern Ohio region as a whole. All this goes back to what I found a story. It was a folk tale a while back, and I jotted that down and would like to repeat this because I think that this is the real sort of message here as to why this is now working and why Portsmouth, an area, is moving in a positive direction. It's called Tale of the Rock Soup. It goes like this: that 3 soldiers walk into a village, tired and hungry. They knock on the doors of each home. They hear the same thing: I have nothing to give. Undeterred, the soldiers place rocks in boiling water and announce that they are making stone soup. All it needs is a little flavor. The curious villagers emerge. One offers an onion, another a cabbage, a potato, a carrot. In the end, everyone feasts on a nourishing soup made of humble parts by many hands. In short, if everyone brings something to the table, good things happen. And that's exactly what's happening in Portsmouth today.
That is an exquisite answer. I really enjoyed what you had to say there. I'd like to add in, just not to steal your thunder, but to add in a few things that of what a modern cop thinks. And when you think of the Highway Patrol, you might be thinking of speeding tickets, and you might be thinking of seatbelt tickets and that kind of crash investigation. So much more to it. As I said earlier, our operations at the Portsmouth Post are really moving fast. Now it's time to do something better. And it starts with understanding what plagues our community, and that's addiction. In the future, you're going to see people like Greg Gawker, Wendy Waugh, Matty Burnside, Dr. Bauer, those kinds of people that will eventually show up, that talks about all of the good things that starts with understanding addiction. When I think about addiction, these people are savable. They do come out of it. And I always use, in fact, I did this with Dr. Lorentz and his crew when they were at the Post. Portsmouth is this big circle full of a lot of people. Well, only that much of it's bad. And when you understand addiction and you're able to break cycles, you can pull half of those, at least half, to that big pool. And now we're only contending with a smaller pool of bad people. And my guys are dealing with them, deal with them every day. Rest assured, while you're home asleep, they're up and down your roads and they're dealing with it. back to the topic on hand. Your documentary film work, River Voices and Beyond These Walls, centers on the notion of community and the importance and impact of a sense of community for current and future development. What is the connection here, and how do you see this playing out in the Portsmouth area?
Well, kind of the connection is really having this sense that you're working together and not sort of holding tight to whatever your particular agenda might be, as far as an organization or even as an individual. It essentially is along the lines of what you give, you get back many times over. And I think that we had been plagued in the Portsmouth area for a long time with a kind of a mentality of scarcity. Sort of holding on to things because things seem to be declining, and there was that sense of scarcity, and there was a lack of sort of willingness to sort of reach out and to try to work together. The basic principle here is essentially a rising tide raises all boats, and if you think of things in those terms, instead of I've got to sort of marshal the resources I have and not being kind of in a sharing mode, there's a completely different mentality involved here, and so that's where the idea of a sense of community comes in, because when you have a sense of sort of the wider community and what's good for the whole, that translates into good things. But again, along the same lines as the idea of stone soup.
Well, allow me to go off script here for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of our first meetings with our crew involved talking about a communication strategy. Although it's not a conventional communication strategy, how do you feel that what we have done so far with our email chains and text chains has done?
Well, I think it's a great start, and this is an example of it right here. We're communicating a different message than what has kind of been the standard sense out there, that all things are so bad in the community. We have this opioid crisis. We have all this negative publicity. That is a kind of a mental set that needs to be challenged, and that's that we've gotten a kind of a beginning on this. But my belief is that we need to have a communication strategy in order to sort of bind us together in getting out the positive, good things that are happening, because there are so many good things happening. The message just simply has not fully gotten across yet. It's happening. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But in my opinion, a communication strategy to get that message out, of which this program is a part of, is important.
The thing that I mentioned to people when, I mean, it's no secret, I guess, that when you mention you're from Scioto County or you're from the Portsmouth area, sometimes people will snarl. They're just like, oh, from there. Well, what I challenge them to do is go to one of our local stores and watch the door be held open for you. I mean, that's kindness. You don't get that everywhere. I think that Scioto County has so much to offer. Something as simplistic as our River Days pageant with the 12 girls that did it this year. All of them performed flawlessly. The girl from Green, second runner-up, I think she was, talked about hometown pride. Hey, that's a platform of all platforms, and she's done an excellent job with it, and that needs to be continued. Because I want our youth to come up. I'm not talking about commerce. You and I have talked about this before. I'm not talking about bringing commerce into Portsmouth, although that would be nice. I'm talking about where we live and making the absolute best of a place that I dearly love. So,
Well, along those same lines, I mean, there's a question that arises: which comes first, the cart or the horse? I think that the traditional view has been that commerce drives everything, and that's led to kind of a mentality of what we need is to have a big factory come in and give us jobs, and that will sort of bring money, and then everything will be fine and dandy. I happen to come to it, although these are two sides of the same coin, but I mean, commerce is important, no question about it, but in my view, it's a part of mentality, is a significant part of this, as what sort of drives commerce. Is my hypothesis is that money is like water. It sort of flows where there's a sense of direction, and that if we basically concentrate on developing what we can in terms of our local assets instead of looking for outside money to come in, that entrepreneurs will jump out of the woodwork as things start moving in the right direction. And frankly, I see that happening right now. Look what's going on in Boneyfiddle and all the good things that are beginning to happen in Portsmouth, where people are really getting involved and excited about future developments, and gradually that will overtake sort of the negative mentality that unfortunately I think that we were ensconced in for a good many decades. All which sort of began, I think, with the economic, changes and decline that occurred as we were part of, the Rust Belt, and a lot of those factors were beyond our control. But we're now increasingly taking control over our own destiny, so to speak, and that's what needs to happen, and I believe is happening in Portsmouth, and we need to communicate that not only to our local people, but regionally and nationally, and thus a communication strategy.
There is a national story here. We just got to bring it to the surface. Portsmouth's worth it. This Scioto County Heritage Museum, I understand you are playing a part in that. Any comment on how that's coming along?
It's coming along very well. It's what I call an idea whose time has come. This began with memorabilia days in which local collectors came and had a showing at Portsmouth High School in the gymnasium there of their local collections. And out of that evolved a group of us who said, what are we going to do with these collections when we're gone? And that led to an organizational meeting, and that has now moved forward very quickly and very significantly, actually, as we've formed an organization, and we're looking at creating a Scioto County Heritage Museum for Portsmouth memorabilia. And we're in discussions with various organizations in town, because, again, this is to be inclusive and not exclusive. So we're trying to work in coordination and cooperation with other organizations in town, especially the Southern Ohio Museum.
Well, it sounds like a challenge, but I know the right people are doing it, so I thought we would ask.
Good things are going to happen out of this.
So, I'm looking at this last question we had formatted here, and I maybe change it just a little bit, kind of put you on the spot. Rather than to ask you for the future of the Southern Ohio region, what you would foresee there is, I would be more interested in what do you see out of our group? What do you see happening with the group that we've met with the other day?
Well, I think we got a very good start in our first meeting, because we all had a common goal here, the good of the community as a whole. And that in itself is a part of a communication strategy where you are aware and connected with others of like mind, but bottom line is that I think all of us that have met and worked on this have the good of the community as a whole at heart. So while each of us are doing, laboring in our separate gardens, so to speak, it is this connectivity, because the connectivity of groups working for sort of a common purpose of the greater whole is the goal, and I think we've gotten a good, healthy start on this.
It's good to hear. It's good to be a part of it. Dr. Lorentz, I would like to personally thank you for being here with me today, and then I hope you'll be able to come up on the show again. It's always interesting to talk to you, whether it's in while you and your wife are taking walks, or at the Post, or here, or on the phone. I really enjoy it, and I appreciate you being here.
That's a real pleasure to be here with you, and we appreciate all in the community. I think really appreciate what you and your fellows at the Post are doing for us as a community.
And with that, a couple of things that I'd like to bring to the conclusion would be to challenge those that are listening to do a few things. Traffic crash reduction and our operations at the Post are in a place I don't know that they've ever been. It's really good. Your tax dollars are being well spent. But I want to challenge you with understanding addiction. I want to challenge you with your seatbelts, with obeying the traffic laws, helping us reduce those crashes even more. So with that being said, know that the operations and traffic crash reduction, we've got that. We're doing fine. But we're reaching one step ahead, trying to grab a hold of understanding addiction. If you don't understand it, or maybe if you think you do, but not for sure, research it. We have some brilliant minds on the internet, and people that you may know talk about it. Learn what it is, because once a community understands it, we will know how to target it and break it. I will bring people on the show soon that's going to tell you what they're doing to help it out. That's the next step. I'm not going to be able to arrest my way out of addict after addict after addict. The goal is no different than those that won't wear their seatbelt. The goal is just to get them right, not to write you a ticket, not to arrest you, but to get you right. Compliance. Addiction's a little trickier than a seatbelt, but we'll get there. So again, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope in the future that you're going to join me, Lieutenant Shawn Kelley, the Portsmouth Post Commander, on yet another episode of Keeping You Safe. Thank you.